Dave, your work with SIPs puts you at the forefront of prefabrication. For decades, prefab often carried a stigma, yet you're advocating for a future where components like wall systems are built off-site. What is the deepest conviction or the most frustrating inadequacy you saw in traditional building that made you believe in prefabrication?
I'd have to say with all humility that I didn't see it for quite some time. You know, I went through and became a carpenter and then a builder, domestic and commercial, and just built regular houses like everyone else and tried to build a lot of them, you know, townhouses and bigger projects, and had big crews, but I was always interested in doing it a little bit different. So I did quite a few renovations in period homes. I loved the idea of salvage and the stewardship of materials. We ran a business called Mr. Wolf where we worked for banks salvaging projects that had gone sideways. So there was always that element of, you know, let's try and get the best out of the situation.
Mr. Wolf, what a fucking name.
After Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction.
Oh my God.
It's copyrighted too, so if you can.
Brilliant.
Then we started looking at a little bit of prefabrication because I had a German guy come and work with me in 2007, Thomas, who still works with us.
Thomas.
He's not shy and backwards and coming forwards, and he said, you guys this is ridiculous. Like, to see this sort of construction in Germany, I've got to go to the museum. You know, he was that hard.
This is in 2000 and when?
2007.
Yeah, right, okay.
And so, look, we're too busy. We're involved in social housing.
It's literally when I started.
Yeah.
Social housing construction with the government as part of StimPack and through the GFC. We're doing a lot of projects, you know, almost 140 at one point. And we started an architecture firm because we were tired of not being able to manage design. We had installation, we had construction. We were building in Queensland. I was building 2 projects on the Great Barrier Reef on Magnetic Island on land that we'd bought on spec. Like, we were doing some crazy stuff. And then I had no time to think about how to do it better.
So were you a builder or carpenter or architect? Like, I'm confused.
A carpenter who became a builder. And then we started a design firm. And we had a development company as well. And since then, we've actually moved into engineering. And engineering was a problem, so we found a good engineer, took them out and said, look, let's go out on our own and start something, but we want you to work for us and we want you to do it differently. So we've managed that in-house. So I've started 3 engineering firms as a principal and partner over my time now as well. 1 architecture firm, several development companies, a couple of building companies.
What haven't you done?
I've done a lot of things, actually, and it wouldn't all fit into a podcast. I've worked in a lot of places around the world, and that's where I came into SIP. So fast forward, land the plane on the question. After the GFC, we all had a bit more time on our hands because things slowed up. I was working with Thomas, the German. We were doing a lot of landscaping and a lot of concrete and block work just because it was simple, it was available. We were doing anything we could get our hands on.
Yep.
We had more time to talk. So we started to say, all right, what is this, all this nonsense about how better building is in Germany and so in Europe? Start talking to me. So we started looking at SIP panels. We were dealing with Kingspan in Germany. We started pricing projects. SIPs Industries had started. We had a project at the same time.
SIPs Industries were based out WA, weren't they?
In WA,
yep.
Yeah. We kind of met with those guys, did some training. We were potentially going to partner with them, but that didn't turn out. There was a clash of personalities and a few other things. So I wanted to get better at panels and I wanted to know more, and it was difficult for me because my Deutsch wasn't very good and it still isn't very good. And Kingspan was based in Germany at that point before it moved to the UK and didn't really excel anymore. So I looked and found the SIP school in West Virginia in the US in 2011 and thought, all right, if I'm going to find out more about SIP panels, I'm going to go to the SIP school. My mate just happened to have a wedding on about an hour away 2 days before it, and I thought that's meant to be.
Yep.
I went and did the training, loved it. The guy who runs the SIP school is now my main business partner, Al Cobb, who's been the head of the SIPs Association in North America and probably one of the most well-regarded guys in the SIP industry in the world. And from there, I basically tapped into this world of knowledge and understanding and network of engineering, of construction. He was running a full end-to-end business where he would do design, supply from other companies. He wasn't making it, even though he's ran 3 or 4 different foam plants and SIP manufacturing plants himself, and running the SIP school and running an installation team. To date, he's still done the biggest SIP installation project in the world, which is, I think, 384 semi-trailer loads of panel to a Cherokee Indian school up on the northeast coast. So it's a lot of panel.
And this is where Fenster and Panel started?
So Fenster Panel was born out of doing a project in 2011. I went to the SIP school, and Thomas and I said we should do this just after the GFC when the market's completely flat, no one's got any money.
Yeah.
Difficult.
Yeah.
So needless to say...
Seems to be a common theme, though.
Very common theme.
Yeah.
And needless to say, it meant we did a lot of concreting and block work and a lot of everything else for quite a while. We weren't able to do it full-time until 2016, 2017, where we were able to stitch enough projects together. But still, we had to do more. We had to do the install, we had to do the structure for owner builders, we had to do the other parts of the building for owner builders, we had to do the whole build on a number of projects because builders wouldn't touch it. So at the beginning, we had to do all of it, and now we work with great people like yourselves, where we can say, you're the builder, you take care of all the other things, which are more regular and understandable and more part of the usual building and construction process, and we'll come in and help you with the structure. And so that's where we are today. We have an engineering company here in Australia. We have one in New Zealand. We have an interest in the production facility that you have overseas. We buy panel from about 15 or 16 different sources. We buy mass timber, CLT, mass glulam, feature grade timber, all the fixings, the sealants, and off a total of about 30 different companies. We try to find the best thing for every project and the best product to use in every instance. And so that's why it's so diverse and it's a real spider's web, because Australia is such a small industry because of the small population, and it's backward in a lot of ways. It seems to be at the end of the earth, literally in the construction industry, where it takes a long time for anything to change, and we're always seeming to be in some sort of building boom, so there's no room for change. And so, yeah, we've had to do it ourselves. So I spent a lot of time overseas. I didn't travel when I was younger, when I left school, but I've travelled a lot since then, and opened my eyes up to how the rest of the world approaches construction. And I've tried to immerse myself in that and not get bogged down in how the Australian industry does it, just so that we can say, do you know what, this is a problem that other people have faced, and there's answers to this. Here's 5 or 6 different alternatives. What's going to fit here? And that's where we got to, and that's where we are today.
Should you explain what SIPs are first?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Dave, what's a SIP?
A SIP is a structural insulated panel. So there's a lot of products that will call themselves a SIP, but if they're not structural, technically they're not. So it should be in place of a typical or a traditional structure for a floor, a wall, or a roof. And it's usually a composite of various materials to achieve it, usually making up something that's structural and something that has insulation properties, and potentially hiding various structural elements to make a composite to be in place of a floor, a wall, or a SIP. So technically a CLT panel is not a SIP.
Yep.
It's just a mass timber panel.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you could argue that
comparison.
there's a latent R value in there, but it's not as...
It's like an ice cream sandwich.
Exactly right. But it's not a composite of various
Exactly,
things.
yeah. And I think that's probably the key definition there, is that it's a composite. So typically, well, from my experience with SIPs, is you got the OSB externally, some kind of foam core, and then a OSB sheathing on the inside as well.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love CLT.
Yeah.
I'd like to do more of it. We have maybe half a dozen projects on our books that are CLT.
Yeah.
It's a difficult world to work in because...
Cost or...
It's more expensive. It's probably got its best fit in 3 to 8 story buildings,
Yeah.
because it's so structurally amazing.
Yeah.
So it's a great alternative for concrete panels.
Yeah.
So not so much domestic.
Yeah.
But
And why isn't it taken off then, if it's a great alternative to concrete, with concrete being such a high contributor to greenhouse gas emissions?
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't we opted to go more down the CLT route through, say, the commercial sector?
I think the commercial sector is probably more rigid than the domestic sector. We are doing a lot of projects in Australia, and if you speak to the European manufacturers, so where most of the CLT, 90% of it in the world comes from, they will say that Australia is known for having the big projects in CLT. America's starting to do them. There's some scattered ones, Canada, a little bit in Scandinavia.
Yeah, I saw a couple in America on my last trip going up,
Do you think the Atlassian building's going to be a bit of a driver in people kind of seeing as an opportunity to...
What's that?
What?
Atlassian building?
The Atlassian, they built its biggest timber structure in the world.
Yeah.
In the world,
I have heard of this, yeah.
Again,
concrete-
building our image of building big buildings in timber. Yeah.
Concrete floor, from my understanding, you might know a bit more than that. I guess, to anchor the building, and then everything above that.
A lot of glass.
Airboss Dan.
I did,
was-
I know of. I didn't know that.
Incredible. Like, you have a good chat with the guys at Proclima. They're working on.
Because we've banged on about this a lot, is prefabrication. And I still wrap my head around why we haven't adapted as quick as we should.
I don't know what. So when did we do a project? 2019, 2018, just before COVID.
18.
18, yeah. And it was such a. And I remember when I chatted with Chris from Archer. He called me up and he goes, "I've got this project." I didn't even know who Chris was. I didn't even know who Archer was. And he goes, "I've got this cool kind of thing," and I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm in. Sounds great." And then I haven't looked back. I think I've done close to a dozen buildings now, with Fenster and Panel.
Is it like a model that works? Like, is it like a box with a gable, or what works best?
Anything, right? And I think probably circling back to something Dave was saying before, and because Dave and I have had a business relationship for years, you kind of touched on some of the complexities around actually sourcing the products, right? As a consumer, as a B2B, I don't see any of that. And I think this is what I love about it, because people think, oh, it's coming from overseas, it's too hard. All I'm dealing with is you or your team. Like, I'm not dealing with all the other shit that you've got all the other work that you've done on the back end of that. I don't know anything about that. All I know is that, our shop drawings need to get ticked off. We're working through the details. We're kind of estimating that, we're going to get the panel here, so let's work backwards from there to hit all these other markers for this project. But we don't see all that other energy that you put in to make that project simple. I mean, you talk about how easy it is dealing with Harley and the guys from Logic House.
It's all the windows near there.
The same thing though, because we're all managing all this quality control in the background for 10, 20, 30 different items, and we don't show you that. But like the screws, like we just spend a lot of time looking at the screws, where they're coming from, how they're performing, this periodical testing. That sort of stuff is not the thing you advertise, but
so
we want to
one-stop
make sure
shop.
it's right.
Yeah.
We want to make sure it's the best option, and we want to make sure we've got them.
And I think one of the other game changers for us, I think in the most recent years, is how you've brought engineering in-house now. And I know you kind of used to have that model, but it still felt a little bit disjointed when you had your past engineering company. Now we're just dealing with Fenster and Panel.
Yeah.
From civils for the structure.
Oh, so you do all civils and everything. Like, you actually take it, so it's a whole project.
Yeah.
Whole project.
Which is like what
Oh, so-
Yasha was saying at the SBA.
So it's not like when I did my project with you,
you.
you just did the SIPs, but we had the engineer below ground too.
No,
Yeah.
everything, yeah. And the thing is,
Okay.
like, and so when it's not a SIP project, we're using Ironic. When it's a
Yeah.
SIP project, we're using Fenster and Panel.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
really simple.
Which makes so much sense.
So
It's like-
simple.
Yeah.
Because there's connections between the documentation. You're not sort of going back and forward. You're not chasing a Reg 126 from that engineer and a Reg 126.
And the building surveyor's confused and what's happening and
it's
who's
so
liable.
much easier just to go, all right, Fenster and Panel.
There's
So-
accountability there, though, and we want to promote that accountability, that when we're designing something, we're designing it so that it's cheap and easy to build, and it's not going to hurt the installer, because often we're the installer.
Yeah.
So there's a flow of accountability from start
Yeah.
to finish, and that really helps to have that control.
Yeah.
So, I think I said it to Dan from your office yesterday, Hamish, the day before. I said it's actually, we would engineer it for free because that's how much money we'll save on the installation.
Yep.
Any project.
Yep.
Because it costs us that much money
Yep.
if we have to deal with someone else's engineering. But also on site, we can change something and deal with it instantly
Yep.
without stopping a job. And we all know the value of not stopping a job.
You can just sign off. You can come send your inspector, like engineer, to sign
we
off on the
sign-
project.
Well, I tell you,
And we
so-
do sign off on it.
And maybe this is just sort of speaks to a relationship that we have. I know that one of the projects we're dealing with at the moment, we hit a whole bunch of rock. And Nick, one of my team, set up this spreadsheet that was live that Nathan was watching as he was filling it out. And Nathan was just sort of giving him feedback. Yep. And Nathan was, I think they'd set the macros or the things in Excel that as soon as it went green, we were all good to go. And Nathan was approving it. Like, we just had this, like, Nathan was working away and he's like just checking the spreadsheet as he goes. So my team could keep moving. Nathan had his eye on, the size of the holes and stuff like that. And it just, I understand that relationship is built over time, but I guess that's the kind of stuff that you guys offer. And that's the advantage of having that in-house with Fenster and Panel.
Yeah, I think that's the relationship that we want to
Yeah.
build, and just so that we're not charging you for anything for that. We're on the job, we're with you, and it's in our interest for us for that project to go well, for the timeline to stay as per what the plan is, and for you guys to be happy, because next week when something else happens, we know you'll help.
Yep.
Vice versa. And that makes for a great working relationship. Devon asked me yesterday why we like working with the people within our industry. It's because we can have relationships like that. We, in the general construction industry, particularly the commercial industry, you don't have relationships like that. You have a back pocket full of variation orders and you fill them out as quickly as you possibly can to try and pinch a dollar wherever you can, because you know it's going to happen to you.
And I think it goes both ways as well. I think, we typically pop all the installation of the SIPs in your remit, but I've always got one or two people on site.
Exactly.
And it swings and roundabouts, They might be doing something else where they'll jump in and help with a roof panel or something like that. It just kind of all swings and roundabouts.
There was a question before, Hamish, about why we haven't adopted it. I think you asked, Matt.
Yeah.
I think there's the tyranny of distance. A lot of these products aren't available locally, and that people are they're very last minute. The planning process in Australia, the consent process with building surveying and finance, it's all very delayed. And so when you do actually get to build, everyone's standing there going, we need to build something, so let's just do something super fast. What can I get today, right? There's that element. But in order to do any sort of off-site prefabrication, you need to bring forward questions and you need to answer them in order to gain value from it. You need to say, what windows are going in there? How big are they going to be? What's the tolerance? How's the flashing detail going to work? What do you need from us? And that decision has to be made a lot earlier than what it would have previously. And so if you add all those things up, it's a change in mentality to start dealing with issues and design questions or options earlier. And it requires a retraining in the industry to do it. People are like, I have to do all this work. Well, you know what? Your site supervisor was going to do it and he wasn't going to tell you. You just would have had a really bad week in week 32 of the job.
Well, making those decisions in pre-construction outside of the duress of a live project is a lot easier.
And the time's cheaper.
And we've had, as I said, close to a dozen successful SIP projects now. And I know that the ones that we spend more time in pre-con are the easiest ones. Yep. I mean, we are dealing with one at the moment in the laneway on a tight-ass fucking block, and there's been zero issues so far because we've tried to manage all the problems beforehand.
Yeah.
So how's growth been in, like, say, the prefabrication model from a SIPS perspective? Have you seen, like, a linear growth, or is it just, like, a very sharp, or is it, what's it look like?
Is it a roller coaster?
It gets my blood pressure moving when you ask that question. Yeah. It's a roller coaster, I think, is the best way to look at it.
It's like we're trying to work out, can we do it? Like, it's like...
We can't work it out. And to try and staff it from a labour perspective, we've had to have our own projects on the go. We've had to do, all sorts of other things to try and fill our time because it's so unpredictable. Like that job you're talking about, Hamish, it's going super well, but still they've just pushed back the timeline on us by almost, 3 or 4 days, which has now pushed the install of that roof into 2 other projects.
Yeah,
we just can't plan for it.
So I actually saw that email come through.
But what I mean is, like, as an industry growth, are we seeing an uptake in SIPs and prefabrication? So I don't mean, that's what I mean. Is like, are you seeing this year you did 3 years ago you did 20, now you're doing 30 and 40, or is it because I still feel the industry, we're scared by prefabrication.
Yes. Well, all right, I'll answer that more specifically. It's trending upwards, which is great. It's a roller coaster. You can probably earmark it to financial patterns within the market. Certainly within COVID, it caused a big gap, and we probably should have had a recession. We didn't. When we have a recession, there's code changes, and on the back end of code changes, you get people having to build better buildings, and that helps us. So we didn't have that. The finance issues during COVID put a big hole in it, but it's trending upwards. It's getting a little bit more consistent. The volume is higher. There's no doubt about it. But really, I mean, to answer that question, you've got to look at the fact that Australia, out of the OECD, has the lowest amount of prefabrication.
This is where I wanted to get
on that list, right?
Yeah.
I think a couple of years ago, it was down at like 3%. And if you look at Scandinavian countries,
like 70 plus,
78% they get up to.
Because they have to, because it's so cold, or they just need to get these buildings up and then we'll work the interiors out later.
Yeah, and you have to. And so when I was talking about CLT before, in Australia being known for building big buildings, the majority of CLT still goes into European buildings, into residential buildings and 1, 2 and 3 story, when they build their superstructure super fast during the summer months, get it locked up, leave it, go and do another one, go and do another one, go and do another one, and they finish all their buildings when it's snowing. So there's a lot of that that's going on, and Australia's just approaching it differently. So how the market's moving, I don't know. We're doing huge buildings in CLT. I thought that Barangaroo, to answer your question about Atlassian, I just don't know what's actually going to make it shift. But 3% it's got to get higher.
I think building is so expensive right now. I think we're going to go into a sort of a period where we're going to be forced to try different things, and I think it becomes down to things like prefabrication.
I feel like, Stephen, the people that we're talking about, not necessarily with SIPs, but like panelised construction. So a typical, 1684 wall frame with wraps and insulation. There are more people that we're talking to now in the industry that are trying to get into it.
Yeah.
But actually, I feel like you can't try to do, we need other people to start up to create competition.
No. I'm saying that there are bigger players out there with the infrastructure that are now chatting that we're on a
higher level.
It's what we need to solve the housing crisis that we're in. What's going to do it? I'm not sure. I just don't understand. The prefabrication market is still so small that we're still in the early phases of adoption. So it's still seen as boutique, and it's still the funding system hasn't really come up to speed. The Commonwealth Bank's talked about changing their funding system so that they will release money for work that's not done on site for prefabrication. That's great, because at the moment it's a huge funding issue, particularly with the tyranny of distance. But when you're talking about CLT and you're talking about these technologies that are coming from abroad, a lot of them, and coming from a supply chain that's longer than usual, that's always going to be a restrictor from a finance perspective. But Australia's never going to grow a big CLT industry, and there'll be people who argue with me about that. But if you look at it, CLT and mass timber is made where the timber grows. We don't have enough timber, and we don't have enough quality timber
and we don't
make good CLT.
And we don't manufacture anything here anyway.
and we have some of the worst conditions to run a manufacturing facility in the world. The least support, the highest costs, where there's no encouragement to manufacture in this country. For us, we've looked at it several times, and we get asked about it all the time. We would have to lower our quality, increase our cost, and probably increase our lead time to deliver an Australian-made product. And so we're going to decrease our capacity and probably decrease our market share. It's just not appetizing for me, and it's not good for our clients, because our country is not set up to manufacture. And so for someone to say to me, why don't you manufacture that here when we don't even build a car in this country anymore, frustrates me a little bit.
And the thing is, it's not that we're taking jobs from Australia to overseas, because we're going to create new jobs by creating installers.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have a problem.
I don't give a fuck about.
Zero
I'm all in on China at the moment. I think going over there for so many things is we're going to be forced to, and I think that's where a big shift in our industry is going to come from to get price down. Is you are going to go overseas because you got no other shop.
You have to.
Yeah.
And if you want to increase manufacturing capacity and productivity without increasing immigration, you have to get them to do it somewhere else. Like, that is a simple equation. Unless you go the Henry Ford approach and work out a way to do it with no people, which you can't really do with housing. Housing just takes people.
And it's 40% of a project is labour cost roughly.
Yeah.
So then,
and it's growing too. The labour component's growing.
But I feel like your project, your type of system, can reduce labour to some extent. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. And we aim, and this is what we pride ourselves on, even compared to our competitors who have a comparable product. We aim not to cut anything that we don't plan to cut. That's our aim. So we're on 5 jobs right now, and I don't think that we've cut a panel. So that's our aim. And that's how it should be, because it should be cut in the factory.
That's called prefabrication.
It should be prefabricated. It should be well planned. And really, the guy should have minimal tools out, so less set up and pack up time. The time for an average carpenter to set up on site, it is excruciating. I can't watch it.
30.
I think it's interesting, like the take on prefabrication, and certainly my perception of prefabrication. And I've said this a few times, that I came from the slums of construction.
I think we all did, didn't we?
Where prefab was the cheapest, quickest method to get wall frames on site, and it was purely price driven.
Yep.
And you'd get prefab wall frames on site, and it was actually more labour for us to put them up, butcher them apart, and patch them so it worked. So my perception to prefab at that time was like, I don't want anything to do with prefab. But now when you see things like Mark's panelised build, I was on Hamish's chitin build with the SIPs panels from you guys.
Yeah.
And it's precision manufactured.
Yeah.
Everything's planned. Everyone in that whole process has done their job properly. All the benefits start like stacking up, and like this is super fast. We haven't touched anything. It's easy. That's a complete different prefabrication process than your typical prefab wall frames.
So you should see Nick was proudly showing me the other day that there's one beam that connects. This is one of our projects together, Dave, that connects two of our boundary walls, and he was showing me this one beam where this connector beam slotted into a pocket on either end, like on the wall that's set on top of the blockwork.
Yeah.
And he goes, see that gap there? Because it was a checkout over the top. It was like a millimetre.
Yeah.
Millimetre both sides. It was like perfect. It was just perfect. He goes, plumb, level,
Done.
job done.
So it's make an interesting point where you say you don't need to cut anything. So I probably haven't told you this. When we did our project in the Parade in Ascot Vale, around the corner was another SIPs project, but I shouldn't call it SIPs. It was just panels on site.
Yeah.
So we got all of ours up. I reckon for 4 or 5 months, his poor carpentry team, they had to cut them all on site. And then we're speaking to them. Not only that, they didn't even get any of the splines or anything. They were just the SIP with the ply. That's it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
So what, they were like notching everything out to put the splines in?
Blank panel.
The whole,
Yeah, and not only that, because the size differences, I think, was to inch to Australian millimetres, they had to rip every single bit of, say, 190 down, then practically make their own panel on site, and it would have been so fucking expensive.
Well, it's just a waste.
And there's no way they would have accounted for all that labour.
And the clients would have seen the original price up front, gone, they're so much cheaper because they just got panel. Builders gone, it's a panelised system. How easy can this be? And then boom, and it took forever.
Maybe Dave, wrap a bit of context around that, because obviously I've been dealing with these buildings for ages. So can you maybe just expand on what Matt was saying? There's blank panel, and then there's the engineered component of the panels that you guys supply.
But maybe just before you jump in, maybe this is where the conversation around prefabrication is. There's panels, and then there's prefabrication.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it made me think of a job that we did with Devon from Granted Construction, who's a good friend and colleague of ours, many years ago, 2019, 2020. And one of our competitors said, here's your quote for blank panel. All right, no. He goes, I want it cut. I want it all prefabricated. Here's your quote then for the panel to be cut. But he goes, well, you can get your own timber because it's easier. It's just you're used to dealing with timber. And the number's much smaller. And Devon's like, I'm looking at this number and it's smaller. But I said, no, I'm telling you, you're getting hoodwinked.
I've talked to Devon about this.
So I got one of my guys to put a spreadsheet together and said, all right, now this is what you're getting. This is what you're going to have to add to it. And this is the labour cost. This is why we're cheaper and we're going to save you time and there's going to be less risk. And so we had to go through that exercise and we gave it to Devon, and bless his cotton socks, he said, you're right.
Yeah.
And he went with us. It was a very difficult job. And that was a success, that job, out in City View in Baldwin.
Right.
I'm happily saying that address because a number of people, he opened it up and to the public. Yeah. And it was a great project, a lovely project, great clients, and it ended up, like Devon's projects, it was a good success. But trying to manufacture 4 LVLs that are laminated together that have all got an obtuse angle on them to let into a hip when they're 7 metres long on a site in the middle of winter during COVID when you're not allowed to be 1.5 metres away from someone, why would you want to do it when there's a better option?
I think I reckon as well as architecture gets more complex, prefabrication gets more important.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I did a story on my Instagram page, and I think I was following around the rakes and different compound miter cuts as I moved around, because there was all the walls and there was a hip and a valley and all kinds of stuff, and every single junction was perfect. I don't know. I'll show you the video afterwards.
Which project was that?
Thames, and that project it was beautiful. Everything just went together perfectly, but that's all done off site. It literally gets cut in a factory by a robot, millimetre perfect.
Wait, not a human.
Yeah,
they've got to
perfect.
do labour by
But the
hand.
facade of your Studio Fang job.
Well, that was a little bit of Fenster Panel, a little bit of us. I think if we had built that job again, there'd be things that we would do different. It's just Fangs. The geometry was in the panel, but I think we would have raked the ceiling and not had it flat.
And that job you're referring to that you took the footage of, that's a real evolution for us because, a couple of years ago we would have done it differently and we wouldn't have done it as well.
Yeah.
But we're continuing to evolve. And because we have all of that data at our disposal, we have that 3D model where we've combined the architecture and the engineering information. What we did was we made forming trusses at the hips that were the invert of what it should be so that we could land the panel in it very easily without working it out, support it so that they didn't sag or deflect during construction, fix them, and then you contacted me last week and said, hey, these are in the way up here. Can we remove these forming trusses? And I said, yeah, they've done their job. Just knock them out. They're gone because the whole building was designed without them. We made them to make our life easier.
Yeah.
And because we had the all that insight knowledge of just saying we know what that truss size needs to be and we can tell someone to make it, it made the installation super fast.
Yeah, it was really
super,
quick.
super nice to work with.
And that was a complex roof as well to go up.
So,
a lot of our competitors will not do a hip and valley roof for that
the first
reason.
one I had to do, and it was easy.
Yeah.
And we had a complex site, and I was like, it was easy.
Yeah.
And anyone who's installed, building wrap and battens on a SIP roof, it is a dance floor. Wow. Like you're running around like.
You can't knacky yourself either, can you?
So this is a good. So this is a good point because we talk about prefabrication and we talk about it just like as a wall system, but it's also a performance system too.
Yes,
it's actually just more than your frame and some ply and up we go. So do you want to talk about that from a level, say, air tightness and insulation value?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the irony is that we're sharing a stand here with ProClima with performance membranes, and in some ways we're doing them out of business because they need less of their product on our structure. Because the SIP panel structure, if it's built and installed correctly, should give you a very high air tightness value out of the gate before you do anything else. Now, we strongly encourage people to wrap it with performance membrane
Some
products.
people don't actually wrap the SIP.
No, by building code requirement, you need to wrap it.
Yeah, okay.
Externally.
But
Externally.
but not internally.
Definitely.
And it's not doing the lion's share of the work to get your air tightness. We're wanting to put it onto the structure to deal with any redundancy moisture from a bulk moisture.
Yeah, like
back
you're
through a
protecting
cladding.
the structure.
We're protecting it during construction, and that's at the point where it's going to condensate behind the cladding, where it's going to hit the panel. It's technically condensating on both sides of the panel. If you construct it correctly, it's going to condensate on the inside and on the outside because it's airtight, and it's rated as airtight as European CLT panels.
But that's because then you have a foam core, which has also got a vapor perm of 0. Is that right? So then that's when you need mechanical ventilation to remove excess water to deal with that condensation.
Internally,
Yeah, we want to change the way we look at these buildings very much so. It's a great question. And that OSB is OSB 4 now on our panel too.
Oh, so it's a super vapor permeable.
Yeah, absolutely. It is top class OSB. So that's something that Devon's very excited about because that is the duck's nuts of OSB. So look, where did this question start? We talked about
performance.
You kind of answered it.
Performance.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're essentially like if you think the easiest way for me to explain a SIP building to someone is that we've all owned an esky in our life before. So we've got an esky, top, bottom, sides, bottom. So top, bottom, size roof. That's pretty much what you get with a SIP. It's airtight, it's insulated, and it keeps its temperature really temperate. Like it helps regulate the temperature inside. So you kind of it's almost kind of cheating.
So this is
but in a good way.
So cheating's cool because my previous question was the kind of loaded question, and it kind of follows back to even before. Is it then like from a spec home volume building industry, and we go down to labour, we go to quality control? Why hasn't this then been used as a system? Because to me it makes so much sense that from their perspective they can really control costs, they can eliminate so much trade, they can also then really control quality very quickly on a structural point of view, and their homes are so set in stone from a design point of view that they can just go print.
That is a great question. I mean,
I think cost at the end of the day.
Surely it's got to be cheaper at some point.
I've done a lot of trade shows in my time, most of them with Bunnings because we consulted to them for years because, there's a lot of guys within their commercial division particularly who wanted to try and bring that question into reality. But we tried on so many levels and we couldn't do it. And I think I mean, there's a race to the bottom for cost in so many areas of the construction industry.
Yeah.
So they won't spend $1 more if they don't need to. And, we've been included in specs in projects, and if a builder can see a way out of it, then he'll knock us off that spec list. And if the client doesn't know any better, then they'll let them do it. The problem is when you've got a developer standing there, that they're just going to chase the dollar. We've got a market that doesn't represent the value equation as well as we'd like at the moment. If you build a better house that's much more credible in its high performance criteria, you don't go to turn around and sell it and get a commensurate a larger amount of money.
Yeah.
And so we haven't got to that point yet, but we're starting to, because energy prices are going up. The market's becoming more educated.
Yeah.
Like, we had to tell everyone what a SIP was when we started, even up until
Yeah. I mean,
2018. But now we don't have to tell them what it is.
I mean, you were using the term high performance before it was cool. Like before
Is it
there
cool?
before there was
Is
a
it
hash-
cool, Matty?
before there
just
was
a
a
buzz term,
before there was a hashtag on it, you were like Fenster and Panel high performance structures, and like
It literally says it on your top right
Yeah,
now.
And it's always said it, which
Yeah.
is,
yeah. So I mean,
What's your definition of high performance?
Well, it's kind of both. It's thermal and it's also structural. Well, we're trying to remove steel wherever we can from a carbon perspective from a building. We're trying to reduce member sizes, but we're also trying to, going back to like 3 or 4 questions ago, we're also trying to make prefab cool, where we can say, we don't have a system that you have to comply with. We don't have all these rigid rules. We take great pride in saying, you show us what you want to produce, what you want to build, what you want to create, and we're going to work out a way to prefabricate it. We want to prefabricate good architecture, and that's where the performance comes in. And it's much harder to do that because, some of our competitors just say, all right, we're going to do anything we can to sell blank panel. And so they want to keep ceilings flat. They want to keep buildings simple. They want to tell you that it's easy to do. But really, some of my favourite projects are the ones with rounded walls, rounded roofs, massive cantilevers.
We threw one in front of you the other week, and you're just like, oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
We love curves.
Yeah, I mean, the first job we ever did with curves had about 15 rounded walls on it. My guys were like, are you kidding me?
We did one in Kyneton.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big curved one.
But it's actually, when you prefabricate, it's a much easier way to create a curve.
Can you do a legitimate curved panel now, or is it just a step
Nothing
forward?
really in architecture is curved. It's just stepped. So we refer to it as a wine barrel. So we call them stave panels, literally like a wine barrel. So we work out what the radius is and then what we can break it down to. And then we'll make small panels that fit together with equal angles and often we'll get the manufacturer to cut the curve that we need on a piece of ply so we can lay it down so that we can set it out very easily. And then not only doing that on the curve, but doing it on the segmented curve because
You
the
get
bottom
cuts
plate
that we can't get on site too.
Yeah, exactly. And then we put it together, and then it gets sealed. And then on the first job we did, actually, Rondo came to the party and was so excited that they just bent them all up off our plans, and they fit perfectly to create the bend in the plasterboard. And the plasterboard actually bent in the finished product.
We had a fucking hell of a time getting that curve done at Kyneton. Like
with the linings.
Oh my god, yeah. Like it was, we were like back cutting to get it. Oh yeah, it was.
But that's
do it differently
really
now,
interesting with curves. I've done a few projects with like traditional, stud walls curved. I've cut all the plates out of form ply with a jigsaw. And then, getting it to all work is so hard.
Yes.
Because what's the actual radius that you've ended up with? Who knows? Whereas doing it all prefabricated and all done with a robot, it's like, here's the radius and we've cut all these components and we can tell the other people, I've got a wrap staircase going up.
Yep.
You're not templating everything. It's like, oh no, the radius is this. We know it's this because it's been built by a robot.
It's all there. Year 10 maths. I wish I'd paid attention.
Is there an elephant in the room that people go like, but what about that?
Oh, look, I think foam is the elephant in the room. Look, that's always been the issue. And that's often the one that people who are trying to talk our product out of a project will grab hold of. That's the low-hanging fruit.
That's why I wanted to address it.
But, all right, well, foam is 98% air for starters. So on most projects we do, this is a fun fact. Most projects we do, there is more plastic in their kitchen on the cabinetry than there is in the foam in their walls. If you melt all that foam down and it's 100 mil thick, it goes back to 2 mil thick, right? There is not a lot of plastic in that EPS because it's all just bubbles. It's all just tiny bubbles, a very small amount of plastic, mostly air. So the amount of plastic is actually very small. But you have to decide to spend carbon, or you have to decide to spend money on chemicals or on something you don't want to in the construction of a building. And there's plenty of areas that you do that, and they don't have such a debate about using concrete in the ground.
Yeah.
But the environmental impact of concrete is by far the biggest contributor to carbon in construction compared to anything else.
And then what would be second?
Steel. And so, but here's the kicker. By spending the time to measure this, if you put foam into your wall in the form of EPS, you might incur the cost of that environmental cost. But for the life cycle of that building, it's now going to save you on your energy bill. It's going to give back to your carbon equation for the rest of the life of that building. Now, this is the really big kicker to this one, is that of the total carbon and environmental cost of a building, you're only looking at about 20% of it as the cost of constructing the building. Up to 80% of the environmental impact of a building is running cost.
Yeah.
So if you can save money on the running cost, holistically, we've just kicked goal after goal after goal after goal. So it's a really disingenuous argument that people who are trying to sell another product bring up.
Yeah.
And really, our world is surrounded by plastic. So if you want to put down the iPhone, or you want to put down in your car how much plastic there is, it's an amazing product.
T-shirt?
Your T-shirt. Yeah, spandex, like what I've got on now, you know. So, but, you know, you need to spend money and you need to spend carbon. And I love concrete, and I've got concrete in my house. There's a time and a place for it. I tried to minimise it, but I'm not about to put another product made out of timber in my retaining wall and pay the consequences for it for the rest of the life cycle of that building. It's about trying to assess the whole thing honestly, look at it from the metric that you want to, and if that is cost, well, you can do that. If it's time, you can. If it's quality, you can. But if you want to start looking at energy performance of a structure, then you've got to do it honestly for the life cycle of the building.
Yeah.
It's like a mic drop, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And not
totally.
once in that did you mention waste.
Because that was what I was going to say.
I've stopped even talking about
What did he
it.
go? What did he go back to the start? We don't cut anything on site, so then you don't have microplastics floating around in
The last 4 or 5 SIP projects we've done, none of them were cut.
No.
And admittedly, there has been 1 or 2 where we did. I think we actually ended up running one panel long because it was really. This is at Brackenbury
Step
Street.
down or
There was
something.
there was a roof junction that we had to. There was no way we could have figured it out prior. So we just go, right, we're going to get that one long and cut it on site. But I could not tell you the last time we've cut a SIP.
So this probably goes
Last
back
four
to
or five
when your
projects.
timber gets delivered on site, it's fully wrapped in plastic. How many
Yeah.
do you get? You
Yeah.
get 4, 5, 6
Yeah.
bundle loads of it.
Yeah.
I reckon there's more plastic in that than, as he
But-
says, if it melts down into his SIPs.
But then this would be interesting. Have you got a metric that measures how much you've spent on a SIP project in manually handling material compared to a SIP, and then carting all the waste off site and disposing it? Whether that's recycling.
But that's not cool. But that doesn't sell a story of say a competitor up front.
Yeah.
That
And
plastic wrap, I mean, not many people are recycling that in Australia, but I can tell you that the EPS foam that doesn't get used in the factory, it gets cut out of the panel,
And
or
reused.
it gets lopped off, it gets reground, and it gets put back through non-virginal EPS, which goes into foam that goes into slab foundation foam.
Yeah.
Because we can only use virginal EPS in structural panels.
Why is that?
Because when the bonds or the polymers form, if you put regrind in there, it changes the molecular structure and it breaks apart. It's not as strong. It wants to shear.
Yeah.
And it also has dirt in it, which it contaminates the mix, and so it makes its strength drop dramatically, and you can't actually use it structurally. So you'll see in the foam that comes out that goes in underslab, it'll have like pink ribbons through it and a bit of black and a bit of this and that. That's because it's got reground through it, and they can put up to even up to 20-25% regrind through virginal EPS to recycle it. So we just got rid of the foam on site from our job where we've delivered a panel package, and it's all going back to Foamex, and I'm happy to plug them.
Yeah.
And they put it through their regrind. We just give it to them for nothing, and they're selling that to someone else who's going to do a concrete slab. So there's more foam going into those slabs on some buildings than going into the SIP panel package above it.
So you also use GPS too?
GPS?
Graphite?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's standard EPS,
Yeah.
and then there's Nearpore, which
Yeah,
is the commercial name of GPS.
Yeah.
But they're going to lose their copyright on it, I believe. That was made by BASP, where they worked out how to incorporate graphite and infuse it with a polymer.
Yeah.
And it increases the thermal resistance by up to 25%, depending on what climate zone you're in. So it turns it into a grey or a black foam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we're pretty much out of time.
Great. Well, that was wow. That's a
Yeah.
way to end.
On the mic drop.
On the
Yeah, I'm
mic
literally
drop.
like,
That's a
I'm
mic
like, I kind of want to keep it there.
Hey Dave, how can people get in contact with you? I mean, I actually see you're slowly getting more traction on social media. I saw that you were actually, this has nothing to do with you, I'm sure, that you reshared one of our posts the other day, which was
He's
a first.
TikToking.
You're TikToking. How can people get in contact with you?
Look, I'm a Luddite, so I apologise to everyone. We don't have the social media presence that we should have. And
So we're doing it for you, mate. It's fine.
Yeah, no, and absolutely you do. But we'd like to do better in that. But look, contacting us at info@fensterandpanel.com.au or getting in touch with any one of our great builders who work with us.
Or just reach out to us and we'll put you on to Dave and his team there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're obviously at the trade show here at ArchiBuild, and we're going to be at the Passive House Conference next week.
Lovely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thanks for
Dave.
having us along.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.